Good evening and welcome once again. I'm yours truly. Definitely, I'm going to say this up front. This video does not reflect the opinions of my Grand Lodge and those officers who have been elected to serve. This is my personal opinion from my own reading, my own studies, books I have, and I've come to my own conclusion in this. And it may offend someone it may not. I don't look to offend anyone. I just look to drop the truth as I see it, as I've come across from the books that have been read, that I've read and they're out there. So this is a part two to my last video I have. This is a part two. And this video is simply called The Making of a Nigga Mason. Part 2, the making of a nigga Mason. The making of a nigga Mason. Hear me clearly. Why is it that the system of Freemasonry, for which most of us, if not all of us, can agree that is African in its symbolism, in its teachings, and when you've come to that point in understanding your life, nothing should be able to keep me away from you. When you have set aside time to actually indulge yourself in Freemasonry, understand Freemasonry, as an African American, as a person who understands Freemasonry, nothing should keep me away from my brother. However, what we have done is we'll allow someone else to come into our midst and tell us who we should and should not recognize as Masons, which is crazy. That is the most craziest thing you can ever be told, who you should and who you shouldn't recognize. And because your lineage doesn't come from such and such, you can't be recognized. Something is wrong with that picture. I would not allow that to separate me from you. From my own reading, Masonry is about me. I'm that secret. And when I came across literature that identified me as that secret, I'm good. And I say that because of this. You name me another group of people who was taken from the east, brought to the west, and buried and left for dead. Now you're saying, brother, how do you come across that? How do you see that to be? How can you say that? I'm going to say this one more time. Name me another group of people who was brought from the east, taken to the west, buried, and left for dead. If Masonry is not about me, and that the system of Masonry is not about me. And I say that for this. It is called the legend of Hiram Abiff for a reason. I'm not trying to disclose any secrets per se, because you can pull up most of this, all what I'm saying, on the internet. You can download it, you can read it for yourself. Once I have come to understand the primitive rites, the Egyptian rites, and the different mysteries within Freemasonry that I've personally been exposed to, I've come to my own conclusion that it was all about me. I am that Hiram Abiff legend. And some may agree, some may not, but I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is this. As an African American and my ancestors, looking at them coming from the east and brought to the west, they were buried and left for dead. They were neither hook-winked, bare feet, naked nor clothed, with a cable tow about their neck that connected them to their brothers and their sisters. Right? Stripped of all metals. Stripped of all metals. Stripped of your name, stripped of your identity, stripped of who you were, stripped of your religion, stripped of all of that. That's you. When you was being prepared to be a Mason, doesn't that sound familiar to you? When you was told to be cautious, Doesn't that sound familiar to you? That you was neither naked nor clothed or hook wink, everything taken? Everything taken. When you was told to do what? Wait with patience. That reminds me of my readings when they said that when the Africans was lined up to go on to the different slave ships, it was called the door of no return. So when I see that and when I read these different stories about Hiram Abiff, the legend of Hiram Abiff, I can only think of my people. However, we have allowed someone to come into the midst of us and separate us. We have allowed someone else to dictate to us who we should recognize as a Mason. First of all, I am your brother. Secondly, if I've been initiated and passed and raised in a constituted lodge of master masons, I am a Mason. But somehow along the way, we've allowed someone to come into our presence and tell you about me or me about you and say they're not recognized because their lineage does not connect to this. The system of European Freemasonry doesn't connect to Africa. It is truly their system. However, we abide by it. We have adopted that system. But when you look into it deeply and separate those working tools for which we use to help us become better men, that is in its essence African. Egyptian rites, primitive rites. And when I began to do my own reading, I have rituals. I've been initiated into the rites. This ritual right here is the ancient primitive rites of Memphis Mizram. All right, that's this ritual. My other ritual I have, this ritual is the ancient primitive rites of Memphis. I have plenty of books on the Egyptian rites of Freemasonry. If you have yourself a Mars and Dogma, that Abiff Bible, get into it. It's deep. It's deep. But when you go beyond that into the Egyptian rites, primitive rites, man, the door is like open. I mean, literally open. And yeah, I have regalia. This was actually a gift per se from Freeman Jackson, Chicago, St. Joseph Grand Lodge. This is mine, and I'm saying to you that we have to stop allowing people to separate us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Black Masons. I don't care if you're a part of New Jersey Grand Lodge, State Grand Lodge, and you're a Black man. I don't care if you're a part of California Grand Lodge and you're a Black man. I don't care if you're a part of Prince Hall and you're a Black man. I don't care what Grand Lodge you are a part of or may hold your membership in. I'm saying that as a person of color, the original man, I'm talking about you. We should never allow anybody to come in and separate us from each other. I don't care if you're in England. I don't care if you're in Nairobi. I don't care if you're in Kenya. I don't care if you're in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, New Jersey. I don't care where you at. If I have my differences with you, that's between me and you. We should be man enough to work those differences out and not put each other on blast in front of everybody. And if that doesn't work, I'd rather go my own way. But I'm not going to tear you down to build myself up. Too many times some of us want to go become a part of what we call state grand lodges or state grand lodges, mainstream grand lodges, because they're supposed to be bigger. They have the money, they have the nice buildings, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm saying that when you get there, when you're sitting amongst those brothers in that craft, and you're the only one there, you shouldn't look behind you and say, well, I'm not like you because you're not able to come and sit in my lodge. That is a nigger mentality. Only niggas do that. I'm in the master's house now. No, that's not how this thing works. We as Masons across all racial lines are supposed to be becoming better men through this system of Masonry, through its working tools, through its teachings, which doesn't give in to any particular religious sect, whether you're Protestant, Catholic, or Jew, whatever your religious preference are. Freemasonry is supposed to bring us together, supposed to galvanize us to say, okay, we're all upon the same level. However, we know that history has shown us and continues to show us that that's not necessarily true. Because we all know that Black Masonry in the United States was frowned upon, where all of us was in the same boat. Not even 30 years ago. Not even 30 years ago. All of African American lodges and Grand Lodges was frowned upon, was looked upon as being irregular, clandestine, bogus, you name it, that was the catchphrase. And now that my brothers of Prince Hall affiliation has somewhat broken down those barriers, and I give them credit for that. I do. My thing is even though you've done that, you shouldn't turn a blind eye. You shouldn't turn your back on your other brothers. Because you are still in the community. You ain't going nowhere. You're still in the same boat I'm in. Just because you're able to sit in that lodge with them doesn't separate you from who you are. But some of you, not all, but some of you are so hell-bent on their acceptance till you forget where you are at. You forget who you are. Look, we know, and we have seen the system. It's no matter how much money you have, no matter where you live, you're still going to be considered a nigga. Now, unless you carry yourself in a certain way, and if you can speak the language of the king or the king's language and perfect that language, you can kind of maneuver your way in the system. Because trust and believe, there is a system. Now the ideal is, how do you navigate the system? Because Freemasonry is all about you. There's no other group of people, like I've said before, that has been hit in the head and left for dead and waiting on a master to raise them up. There's no other group of people that has been brought from the east into the west and left for dead. Whether it's whatever tree you want to call it, occasion, a pine tree, a bluff, whatever, lemon, whatever tree, we have been left for dead. Now the ideal is, when you're coming to that knowledge of self and understanding who you are, you got to raise up the next man. You got to take your working tools of, whether it be the York Rite, Scottish Rite, you got to take your working tools, Master Mason, and raise that brother up from a dead level to a living perpendicular. And when his eyes are open, because even if you're a 33rd degree, you're barely unfall. Even when you are a 32nd degree, you're just beginning to really defrost. But when your mind is open to other rights, when you have looked beyond those meager rights of just the 33rd and understand that there's more to Masonry, man, you become unthawed. You're able to be molded. You carry yourself a little bit differently. The system of Freemasonry, for which most of us practice, know is a European type of style of Freemasonry. The ideal is to get past that and stop letting people divide us. And when we're able to do that, you're no longer a nigger Mason. You're a man amongst men. Because you don't allow no one to dictate to you who you are. Just like in that Royal Arch degree, you become I am who I am. Or some may say I am that I am. That's where you begin to really build and construct and understand what Freemasonry is all about. So look, I'm going to leave you with this. Wake up and stop allowing people to divide us come together and start respecting people. I'm saying that it doesn't matter whether you or your policy allow me to visit or sit in your lodge. I'm saying that we need to start just respecting each other, loving on each other. Huh? So, as always, until we cross paths, until we meet again, keep your light on, and always stay out them bushes.